Welcome to another episode of the Cassels Cast. My name's Eamon Cassels. We're going to be doing something a little bit different for today's episode. We're going to be looking back at the 2016-17 MVP race. I'm going to be making the case for the main three candidates before concluding with who I would have voted for. This was one of the most legendary MVP races of all time, and nearly 10 years later, I think it's worth taking another look at. With that in mind, let's just get into it. 16-17 MVP race will always hold a special place in my heart. Maybe it's because I was 14, an age where debating this kind of stuff throughout the season is just simply more fun. Maybe it's because this is the first true MVP race I witnessed with my unique perspective and opinions. Maybe it's in part due to the irony that the three main MVP candidates actually ended up as teammates briefly on the Los Angeles Clippers. Or maybe because it was simply one of the most legendary MVP races of all time. Nearly a decade later, I believe a clear case can still be made for the three main candidates. Today, I will make that said case for these three players before ultimately concluding with my pick for the award. The eventual MVP, Russell Westbrook, had a season that will forever be remembered. He became the first player since Oscar Robertson in 1961-62 to average a triple-double, posting absurd averages of 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists. His 31.6 points led the entire NBA. Westbrook was already known for his ability to get triple-doubles, leading the league with 18 triple-doubles the season before. However, his 42 triple-doubles in the 16-17 season exceeded his previous career total of 37. Incredibly, Westbrook later averaged a triple-double in 3 more seasons. But before the 2016-17 campaign, nobody thought we'd see another player average a triple-double. However, what makes this season truly memorable is the context behind it. The Thunder had just lost to an all-time great team in the 73-9 win Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, blowing a 3-1 lead in the process. The Warriors later lost to LeBron James-led Cavaliers in the NBA Finals, blowing a 3-1 lead of their own. This led Kevin Durant to shockingly join the Warriors in the 2016 offseason. This move angered fans across the NBA, but without a doubt, it affected Thunder fans the most. The small market of Oklahoma City didn't know NBA basketball without Durant, and losing him to an all-time great team who they nearly just beat added salt to the wound. The Seattle Supersonics moved to OKC in 2008, and Durant had been the face of the franchise from day one. However, Westbrook had also been with OKC since the start, and after Durant left, he embraced the city even more. Westbrook was widely considered the league's best second option at the time, but he took his game to another level this season, proving he was capable of carrying a franchise. With KD and Westbrook, the Thunder were an elite squad, but with Westbrook only, this was just simply a fringe playoff team. Their surrounding core consisted of Victor Oladipo, who had yet to truly hit his stride, defensive specialists Steven Adams and Andre Roberson, and a gifted offensive center, yet one of the league's worst defenders in Enes Kanter. Taj Gibson and a rookie Domantas Sabonis, who was far from his peak, rounded out this core. Westbrook got the most out of the squad, however, leading them to 47 wins and a 6th seed in the West. This exceeded the Thunder's preseason over-under projection of 45.5 wins. This number was even a little bit high, but it was mostly accounting for Westbrook's greatness to begin with. Without Westbrook, this team would have certainly been at the bottom of the West, and the team adopted his high-energy playstyle. Westbrook gave Thunder fans around the globe a renewed sense of joy following Durant's exit. And from a neutral fan's perspective, the Thunder's underdog story was easy to root for, especially given Westbrook's exciting playstyle and the fact that he was making history. I think everyone who was a non-Warriors fan at the time remembers rooting for Westbrook and the Thunder during KD's return to OKC. While the Warriors won that game, it was clear that Westbrook and OKC had the nation's hearts. For a player who was and still is constantly criticized for his advanced stats and efficiency, I think it's worth noting that Westbrook led the NBA in box plus minus and VORP. Oh, and on top of all that, he posted an absurd plus 12.8 net on-off difference. Westbrook's impact on this Thunder team couldn't be clearer. On top of all this, contrary to what some people will tell you, Westbrook's triple-doubles actually led to winning. Notably, OKC was 33-9 when Westbrook had a triple-double, and they were just 14-26 when he didn't. Yes, triple-doubles weren't just a cool storyline and talking point, it truly led to winning. Westbrook also led the league in clutch points per game, and total clutch points. He simply did everything for this OKC team this season. I don't think it surprised anyone that Westbrook ended up winning MVP, earning 69 out of 100 first-place votes. This was undoubtedly a special moment, however, and I think it's also worth noting that this sort of changed how we thought about MVP voted. Westbrook became the first MVP whose team was below a 3 seed since Moses Malone in 1982. This later opened the door for Nikola Jokic to win MVP as a 6 seed during the 21-22 season. After Westbrook's MVP, How much you elevated your team became more of a talking point than simply winning in team success. It's hard to say that Westbrook didn't deserve MVP this season. However, that's not to say there weren't other deserving and worthy candidates. Not the least of which is James Harden, who finished second with 22 first place votes. The Houston Rockets guard posted similar averages to Westbrook, racking up 29.1 points, a league leading 11.2 assists, and 8.1 rebounds. The argument for Harden is pretty logical, as he was just 2 rebounds shy of a triple-double, and he led his Houston Rockets to a 3 seed with 55 wins. It's worth wondering if the 2 rebounds are worth an extra 3 seeds in 8 games. This isn't to disparage Westbrook in any way. As I explained, his MVP case certainly was worthy. However, it's an argument that certainly needs to be taken into account. Harden's numbers were nearly as mind-boggling as Westbrook's, and they simply translated to more winning. It's not like the Rockets were some loaded roster either. They were an 8 seed the year before and were projected to win just 44 games, which is less than OKC's preseason projection. The Rockets' second best player was either one of their prolific bench scorers in Eric Gordon or Lou Williams. Starting center Clint Capella also had a clear case to this claim. Still, that's not what you expect from a 3 seed, especially in a loaded Western Conference. New Rockets head coach Mike D'Antoni implemented his famous pace and space system, which proved to be a perfect fit around Harden. He notably won Coach of the Year that season. D'Antoni's system previously brought the best out of Phoenix Suns guard Steve Nash, who won 2 MVPs with the famous 7 seconds or less Suns. What the Rockets lacked in talent, they made up for in fit, however. The Rockets surrounded Harden with incredible floor spacing, with Gordon, Williams, and Ryan Anderson. On top of this, Clint Capella was the lob threat that Harden thrives next to. Plus, they had Trevor Ariza and Patrick Beverley to cover up Harden's weaknesses on defense. This team maximized Harden's abilities as a playmaker. His assist numbers notably increased from 7.5 to 11.2, and this was the start of Harden becoming a truly elite playmaker in this league. Well, you can make an argument that this team was slightly more talented and certainly fit better around Harden's strengths. None of this would have worked without Harden. Sure, it was a team of nice role players, but they wouldn't have even sniffed the playoffs without Harden. Harden elevated his team and got the absolute most out of his supporting cast. Harden led the Rockets to the second best offense in the league, only behind the juggernaut Warriors squad. Yes, D'Antoni's system helped, but the system was built around Harden, and he was the engine of the Rockets' success. Harden notably led the NBA in win shares, while posting a better effective field goal percentage than Westbrook. Harden's story isn't quite as amazing as Westbrook's is, but he checked every single box you could ask for from an MVP. Kawhi Leonard's 2016-17 season may be forgotten forever, but it was a legendary one. Kawhi averaged 25.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.8 blocks, and 1.7 steals. These numbers don't look significant compared to Westbrook's or Harden's. However, it comes with important context. Leonard did this while being arguably the league's best defender. He just won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and he finished 3rd this season. I guarded all positions and routinely took opposing stars out of games, all while being an elite defensive playmaker. This paired with his offensive production can't be ignored. Two-way play must be accounted for in MVP conversations, and Leonard was unquestionably the league's best two-way player this season. Perhaps the most central part of Kawhi's MVP case was that he led the Spurs to 61 wins. This was in the same conference with what many people, including myself, considered to be the best team of all time. And the Spurs were amazingly just 6 games behind that dominant Warriors squad. This is an incredible feat, and it's largely because of Kawhi that the Spurs were able to accomplish it. I know what you're thinking. It's the Spurs, and Kawhi arguably had the greatest coach of all time in Greg Popovich next to him. Well, this is true, of course. This wasn't that talented of a Spurs team. Tim Duncan had just retired. Tony Parker was 34. Ginobili was 39. And they had just brought in a 36-year-old Pau Gasol. All of these players were still playing big minutes, although they were past their prime. Yes, LaMarcus Aldridge was still playing at an all-star level. However, other than him and Kawhi, most of the Spurs core consisted of aging veterans. Outside of the guys I mentioned, Danny Green and Patty Mills were there to support Kawhi. Yes, the Spurs team was more talented than the Rockets or Thunder, but like Harden and Westbrook, Kawhi got the absolute most out of this team, and it wasn't an elite supporting cast by any stretch of the imagination. Take Kawhi away from the 2016-17 Spurs squad, are they a playoff team? I don't think so. And if they are, they're definitely one of the lower seeds. It's interesting because if you put Kawhi in the Rockets or Thunder in place of Westbrook or Harden, I don't think they'd be any better. Those teams needed a primary ball handler to make their offense work. In the same breath, I think the Spurs would be a worse team with Harden or Westbrook. I don't think they could thrive in the same way that Kawhi did off the ball or as a defender. The Spurs need a certain unselfish style of player to make their offense work, and Kawhi was perfect for that. What hurt Kawhi undoubtedly is that his game wasn't flashy and his personality isn't marketable. This might sound silly in an era where Nikola Jokic has won 3 MVPs, but it was certainly a factor back in 2017, especially when compared to Westbrook and Harden, who were just simply more entertaining players than Kawhi in the eyes of the general public. Nevertheless, Kawhi had a clear MVP case basketball-wise. The best two-way player on a team challenging an all-time great Warriors squad shouldn't be ignored.
For all the talk about how Westbrook and to a lesser extent Harden elevated their teams, it was the Claw who posted an absurd 12.1 on-off difference on offense, a number that was just below Westbrook's and exceeded Harden's. With Kawhi in the court, the Spurs had the third best offense in the league, and they were within striking distance of being the best. But when he sat, they plummeted to the league's worst offense. That's a swing that even Westbrook or Harden didn't have. Well, he wasn't in the traditional mold of an MVP in the sense that he wasn't a super high usage guy. Kawhi's offense translated to winning at the highest level, and it was more impactful than most MVPs in the history of the league.
Which, paired with the Spurs' success, can't be ignored in this debate. The Spurs were a legitimate threat to the Warriors, going 2-1 against them in the regular season. And while it's a regular season award, I'd be remiss not to mention the Spurs were up by 21 points early in the third quarter of the Western Conference Finals against the Warriors. Kawhi had racked up 26 points in Game 1 before Zaza Pachulia intentionally injured him on a play that would forever change how basketball is officiated. Without Kawhi, the Spurs unfortunately got swept. However, even going back to the regular season, Kawhi made the almighty Warriors look mortal, something nobody had expected. If that's not an amazing storyline, I don't know what is. Despite checking all the MVP boxes, Kawhi only earned 9 first-place votes. Shout out to the GOAT Zach Lowe for being one of those 9, though. Kawhi's 16-17 season will be forgotten by many, but it's something that I will always remember. Ultimately, the MVP award is personal preference, and it comes down to what your meaning of value is. I can't fault anyone for favoring one of these 3 candidates over the other. For me, I'm in the minority, but I would have voted for Kawhi. That's not to disparage either of the other candidates, but it only feels fitting to share who I would have voted for after making the case for all 3 of them. Kawhi's two-way dominance and ability to propel his team to incredible success will be something that I forever value and never forget. But still, there's valid cases for all 3 candidates as I outlined. With that in mind, please drop who you would have voted for in the comment section below. Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of the Cassels Cast. We'll see if we do more of these, but I had a lot of fun with this one. I'll catch you guys on the next episode.